What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Lakers Outsiders podcast. I'm your host, Gary Kessler, here with you as always. And joining me as always is Hani Amadi. And Hani, we just got done watching game one of the Western Conference Finals, and it was a fun one, man. It was really fun. That's what we're going to be talking about today. How you holding up over there? These games are getting a little more, I'm getting like more nervous excitement going into these games. The stress levels are a little higher, but today was pretty low stress for us.
Yeah, I guess when you're used to the Lakers losing every game one, and then they come out and really kind of throttle the Nuggets in game one, you don't really have to stress too much. And on top of that, your boy got a Popeye's chicken sandwich for dinner today, courtesy of our good friend Jacob Rude, and the money that I won him through a bet. Um,
So courtesy of
so
yourself, basically.
exactly. So I'm feeling double good right now. I'm feeling great.
Yeah, we are feeling good. I got my energy drink because this day's just been dragging on. But the game was fun. It feels like it kind of makes me feel like 2009, 2010 again, where it was like the days would really drag on waiting for the game at night, and that's what today kind of felt like. I was really excited for this game, and it did not disappoint. The Lakers come out and win a game one finally. They finally did it, and we're going to talk about that today. We're live here on the three platforms that we're going to be doing these live post game streams, podcasts, whatever you want to call them. We're on Twitch, twitch.tv / Lakers Outsiders, and we're on YouTube as well. Just go subscribe to us on Lakers Outsiders there, and be sure to like this video as well. That does a lot for us. That really helps us out. We really appreciate it. And of course, you can like us on Facebook as well, and we should be live streaming there as well. And if you want to chat along with us, or you want to pop in some questions that we always answer at the end, you can do. You can put those basically in a Facebook comment, Twitch chat, YouTube chat, any of those, and we'll see it. So bring your questions, bring your comments. We want to chat with you guys. And as always, guys, this podcast brought to you by UCast Studios, and you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. They should be out on even more podcast platforms after today. We had some technical difficulties, but hopefully that is ironed out after today. So, all right, Hani, let's dive into this game. I don't want to waste too much time. Let's get right into it. The Lakers come out and a little bit of a slow start, especially defensively, give up a lot of points to the Nuggets in the first quarter. I think it was 38-36 after one. After that, the Lakers really lock in defensively and kind of flip this game. What was it about this game that really flipped it for the Lakers after a slow start?
I think we got to point out sort of the energy of the bench mob in general, but specifically, I think Dwight Howard came in and was a massive shot to the arm for the Lakers. I think in the first quarter, what I saw the Lakers really struggling with, to me, they were over switching a lot. It just seemed like they weren't really in their flow defensively. They weren't really working hard to get around screens or contain those drives. They were switching a ton, and that was leading to a lot of situations where Jokic was getting a smaller dude on him, and either he was scoring over the top or they were forced to double team him, and he was finding cutters. And I believe he ended the first quarter with something like 11 points, a couple of assists as well. And, in the second quarter, especially, I think they did a much better job, both in terms of the guards fighting over the screens. And I think a guy like KCP should get a ton of credit for that. For the entire game, he did a fantastic job of guarding Jamal Murray and the rest of the Nuggets guards. But I think Dwight Howard, in terms of his energy, of providing that sort of effort of being able to kind of contain those drives by the guards, but still get out on Jokic, and not need any help defending a guy who we just saw basically destroy the Clippers in the last round. He gave him a ton of trouble, and on top of just being a good defender, he also gave him a ton of trouble just staying out of foul trouble. Jokic ended up with 5 fouls in this game, I believe. And he really was not able to get into a rhythm at all because the Lakers kept going at him on both ends of the floor, really kind of getting under his skin. And I think Dwight should get the bulk of the credit for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, if you're going to pick a game ball, I think it's got to go to Dwight Howard or to Anthony Davis. Both of those guys were phenomenal today. Michael Malone kind of acknowledge Dwight Howard's energy, his physicality in this game as a real difference maker. And I agree 100%. I thought Anthony Davis was unstoppable pretty much. I mean, 12 of 21 from the field, 37 points, 10 boards, 4 assists. No blocks or steals, but his impact around the rim is going to alter drives. It's going to alter shots. He was the man today. He was just a beast. The Nuggets had no answer for him. But I think kind of what we talked about in our series preview, that we expected a bigger role out of Dwight Howard in this series, and I think he showed that perfectly in this game. He just came out there. He had a ton of energy, and I don't know if he was just – I mean, I'm sure some of it had to do with he's very fresh from not really playing in the last series. I think that really helps him. And he's probably motivated, honestly, from not playing in the last series. I mean, Dwight, is a guy that used to be a superstar and, obviously lower role this year, but he's just coming out there. He played extremely hard. He was plus 14 in this game. He had 13 points off the bench, 3 rebounds, looks like 2 blocks, 2 steals. But, man, it seemed like he was getting after every single loose ball. And you could tell the Lakers were getting Jokic very frustrated in this game. I think, honestly, he should have picked up his 5th foul probably 3 or 4 minutes before he did. Jokic, if you ever watch this podcast, you better watch it. We saw that arm yank on Caruso, and I will not stand for that. You do not hurt the bald eagle. But, yeah, I mean, the Lakers had – if you look at Jokic's numbers, I mean, he was efficient as a scorer. He was 8 of 14 from the field, hit 5 of his 7 free throws. But I think a big deal with Jokic, and I guess the Nuggets in general, I mean, they had 23 assists for the game, but Jokic only had 2 of those. I don't think he really hurt the Lakers too badly with his passing, which is kind of something that he really diced the Clippers up in the last round.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both of those assists, if I'm correct, came in the first quarter as well. I think the Lakers just did a phenomenal job of being able to defend him without sending any sort of help outside of that first quarter where they were switching a lot. And I think a lot of the credit should also go to, those guards, the Alex Caruso's, the KCPs, even, guys like Rondo and Danny Green, who did a pretty great job of containing the Nuggets cutters. We talked about it last night when we did our series preview podcast that, the Nuggets offense is constantly moving. They are not stagnant at all. They have guys running around screens, cutting, trying to get the ball from the best passing big man maybe of all time. And I think the Lakers came out, not great in the first quarter, but after that, especially in the second and third quarters, they really buckled down. And, the Nuggets scored, I think, 41 total between the second and third quarters. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of something that we've seen a lot, is that the Lakers kind of flip that switch defensively and can really just choke teams out in terms of just making it so difficult to score against them. And it's top down, I think, on the roster for sure.
Yeah, definitely had a number of lapses in that first quarter. I felt like they were just giving up a ton of layups. Gave up a couple threes to end the quarter, but yeah, just way too many easy buckets inside. Really flipped that switch like you mentioned. 21 points in the second quarter for the Nuggets. The Lakers outscored them 34-21. And in the third quarter, outscored them 33-20. I mean, the Nuggets outscored the Lakers by 12 in the fourth quarter. It was mostly mop-up time, garbage time, whatever you want to call it. This game, I mean, in the second half was probably – like the final score looks a lot closer to me than what this game looked like. Yeah. And I didn't feel like – I don't know, maybe I'm off on this. I didn't feel like the Lakers played overly well in this game. I thought AD was great. I thought Dwight was great. KCP, I thought flew under the radar with his 18 points. Thought he played pretty well, but it didn't seem like his best game. Yeah. Even though I thought if you get 18 points out of KCP on 6 of 10 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3, I think that's huge. I think that's big. Danny Green, I mean, didn't shoot the ball well, but was still plus 20 for the game. I thought defensively did some good things. And I don't know, I just felt like this wasn't even the Lakers' ceiling. And I know every playoff game kind of has its own identity. So like from one game to the next, usually there's not a ton of carryover. Sometimes there is, but a lot of times there isn't. So I'm not like banking on really anything carrying over from this game. But I'm fairly confident going into game 2, not only because the Lakers are wearing the Black Mamba jerseys because they just seem to kick ass in those things, but winning this game pretty comfortably knowing that LeBron, he did have 12 assists, so he was really distributing the ball, but only 15 points. Didn't really have to do a whole lot scoring the basketball like we probably saw a little more in that last series against the Rockets.
Yeah, I think there was one stretch in this game, and that was the run during the second quarter when the Lakers really took a big lead, where LeBron kind of dominated, and I think he was the guy that the offense was running through. He was the one, creating shots for his teammates and also getting to the basket himself as well. Outside of that, I don't think he really did need to do a whole lot. He was more than fine conceding to Anthony Davis, who was basically unstoppable tonight, and letting the big guys mop up around the rim and letting some of these guards get their shots up. And of course, they were scoring really well tonight. But yeah, you're right. I think the biggest reason why we think that it wasn't really a peak Lakers performance is because LeBron didn't really go off. He had a pretty relaxed game where, he didn't seem to be as impactful as he usually is. Obviously, he still had a good game, but at least in terms of scoring the ball, he wasn't really putting a lot of pressure on the Nuggets. And I think that's the next gear that the Lakers have is when LeBron and Anthony Davis are both consistently putting pressure on the rim. The Lakers seem to get to the basket at will in this game. It just didn't seem like the Nuggets really had any options to stop those guys. And at the rim, they don't have any shot blockers. So I think when LeBron is being as aggressive as AD was tonight, then we can see the Lakers get to an even bigger height. And I think that other reason why it might not have felt like a great Lakers performance, it's nuts to say this in a quarter that they won by like 13. The end of that second quarter was really frustrating to me, if only because the last 4 or 5 minutes of that quarter, both Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic were on the bench with foul trouble. Mm-hmm. And the Lakers were not able to extend their lead at that time. They already had a pretty decent lead. They were up like 12 or so when those guys sat. But it was a little frustrating not seeing them take advantage of that moment. And I was like, if the Lakers were to lose this game, and obviously they didn't, we would be looking at that 4-minute stretch or so and saying that's the game. Like, if you're not able to take advantage of a situation where the other team's 2 best players are both tied to the bench because they have 3 fouls, then that's the reason why you lost.
Yeah, that the way they ended the second really had me curious to see how they were going to start the third, because as we've known, their last 3 games coming into this one, the Nuggets have been a second half team. The Clippers found that out the hard way, which still makes me laugh. But the Lakers, were the second half team in this game. Just dominated the third quarter. And I kind of thought, if they come out and they win the third quarter, I think they'll be just fine. And they won it by 13. Really just took control of the game. Really, I closed the third quarter the way I thought they should have closed the second. It's better late than never. But yeah, I was a little frustrated and a little, I don't want to say concerned, just kind of a little curious to see how they were going to come out in that third quarter, because they were kind of letting the Nuggets hang around a little bit. Had an opportunity to deliver a haymaker to end the first half. Didn't quite do that, but they certainly delivered one in the third quarter. So it was all good. But one thing we talked about too was how the Lakers would kind of, manifest their big man rotation. So we were doing our series preview podcast. We kind of wondered, is Frank Vogel going to go back to a traditional big lineup with JaVale McGee and Anthony Davis, or is he going to stick with Markieff Morris, which worked wonders against the Rockets? Kind of got our answer today. I don't know what it looks like going forward, because JaVale only played 11 minutes in this game. I think Dwight Howard started the second half in his place. Probably just a reward for him playing extremely well in the first half and was just getting after every loose ball, was extremely physical. He was just a nightmare for the Nuggets. And it looks like we've got our answer in that regard. How surprised would you be to see Dwight Howard start game 2 in JaVale McGee's spot?
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Dwight had a fantastic game, and I think he really showed that he might be the Lakers' best matchup against Jokic, at least defensively. JaVale is a pretty decent defender, and I think in terms of their overall impact defensively, they're pretty equal. But JaVale isn't really a one-on-one like good defender against bigs because he's the lankier, skinnier guy that gets pushed around pretty easily, and Jokic is just a massive dude that's going to be able to kind of back him down and get decent shots around the rim or force any sort of help. Dwight doesn't get moved around at all. He's one of the strongest dudes in the NBA, and even Jokic isn't really able to affect him that much. Plus, I think there is something to be said about Dwight just being a pest to Jokic and really frustrating him. I could see the Lakers starting Dwight and really trying to match. He won't play the same number of minutes as Jokic, obviously, but really try to match his minutes with Jokic just to get the maximum effect and ability out of Dwight. I could see JaVale still get minutes as sort of a backup big. Maybe you play him next to Markieff and LeBron and kind of use his rim running ability and lob catching ability, although Dwight did a great job of that today as well. He had, I think, 2 lobs that he dunked on today. So I don't know how much of a role JaVale will have, but I do think Vogel, kind of based on last series where he made the adjustment to bench JaVale, even with the Lakers up 2-1 in the series, I could see him making that adjustment heading into game 2, even if they are up and just had a great game, to bench JaVale and start Dwight instead.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that, because we mentioned this in our series preview pod. I just basically the Lakers' big rotation is why I was fairly confident in this matchup. I think the Lakers can throw multiple bigs at Jokic, and I think Dwight is just such a good matchup to throw at him because Dwight is a good athlete for a big guy, and he's so strong and so physical. And you could just tell Jokic was getting extremely frustrated in this game, and it was like he was almost asking for a 5th foul at some point in that third quarter. I thought he got away with probably about 3 fouls before he finally picked up number 5. But the Lakers kind of just took him out of the game, I think, with that physicality, and really frustrated him. Again, he had 21 points, 6 boards. I mean, was efficient as a scorer. Just felt like he was not overly effective out there. Didn't have the same passing performance that we normally see. The Lakers had some lapses on Jamal Murray, but I think if you shut down, or at least if you frustrate one of those 2 guys, I think the Lakers are going to be in pretty good shape, because that's going to force other guys like Michael Porter Jr. to step up and deliver a lot of points, which he had 14 points and 10 boards today, but he was 3 of 9 shooting, 1 of 6 from the 3-point line. Nuggets didn't really get a lot of contributions elsewhere, which, I mean, they still scored 114 points, but I think the real question for them is going to be, how do they stop the Lakers from getting so many points in the paint? Because as we saw with Rondo and AD and even Dwight, those lobs are there. Because we mentioned this going into this series, and it's kind of relative to the last series too. There's just no rim protection back there. Jokic is not a rim protector. It's not his game, his style defensively. And there's going to be those opportunities there, and I think the Lakers really did a good job of exploiting those and finding their bigs for lobs. I thought, it's curious. I'm curious to see how often the Lakers roll with the 2 big lineups, because I think the way Markieff is playing, you got to get him out there too. Him and Dwight both played 16 minutes, which I think 16 minutes each, which is, I think, ideal. You get AD at 33 minutes, which really isn't a lot in a playoff game. And I mean, the rotation looked to me pretty ideal today. I'm just curious to see how Frank Vogel kind of balances the bigs, because you can go small where you put AD on Jokic, and I think he can get a lot more buckets around the basket when you do that, because there's just more space to operate. When he's out there with, say, Dwight, I think you're going to see AD probably shoot more jumpers, but you also have Dwight banging around the basket and really getting physical with guys and creating second chance opportunities. And when you have those 2 bigs out there and Jokic pulls, say, AD away from the basket, or he pulls Dwight away from the basket, then you still have another big out there that can protect the rim. So, I mean, it's a little give and take, I think. But I think ultimately the fact that the Lakers have options, that if they go smaller with Markieff at the 4 and then AD or Dwight at the 5, versus having two of those bigs out there, I think both of those concepts can be pretty successful in this series.
Yeah, and I think it was really interesting. Just in the first half alone, Vogel played four different centers. They had lineups where JaVale, Dwight, AD, or even Markieff Morris were playing center. He is certainly the type of coach that likes to throw different looks at guys. And I think Jokic is the person that they're really keying on, frustrating him with different options and really giving him a lot of different looks. And in terms of that two big lineup, I think, see a stat before we got on here that when AD and Dwight were sharing the floor together, the Lakers rebounded, I think, 53% of their own misses. So they were really battling on the offensive glass and continuously getting second chance opportunities. A lot of those led to fouls for the Nuggets, and obviously a lot of their guys got into foul trouble today. And so I think that is something that Vogel is going to see as a pretty massive advantage moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love the versatility that the Lakers can go with. There's just so many combinations that they can mix and match, and I mean you kind of look at, and I think we mentioned this in the Rocket series too. The fact that the Lakers can go so deep into their rotation, I think that's such a huge advantage, not only with a team like the Rockets in the last series where they played a really short rotation. It was mostly like six guys are playing like 35 minutes plus, and then you got like one or two guys playing maybe 10 minutes. In this series, obviously, the Nuggets rotation is going to look deeper because there was garbage time. There was three guys that played 10 minutes or less, and then Dozier played 12 minutes. So the rotation looks deeper. But man, as this series goes on, we talked about the fatigue factor in this series. The Nuggets, two very emotional 3-1 series comebacks, 7-game series. This was their 15th playoff game so far. So they've played more games than the Lakers, and the emotional toll, I think, of going down 3-1 and then coming back from 3-1 not only once but twice, and to do it against the Clippers, which was a huge upset. And I think they know it. I think the Clippers know it. Everybody knows it. And I think mentally it can be great at the time, but at certain times, just the mental roller coaster going up and down like that can be a little draining, both mentally and physically. And I think that plays into the Lakers' hand because the Lakers took care of their business in 5 games apiece in each series. And I think we could see that really benefit them. And I think not only just that, but having such a deep rotation that they can go to, they go 10 deep. Looking at the rotation, if they start JaVale, their bench guys basically in this game were Markieff, Kuzma, Dwight, Rondo, and Alex Caruso. So I think that's just such a huge advantage for this team. And I think especially if the Lakers can really attack Murray. And I don't think they attacked Murray a ton in this game. I thought that for a number of possessions that he still scored on, I thought they did a good job of making him work to get his looks. But they did have some lapses on Murray that were kind of frustrating just because, he's one of the hottest players in the league right now. So why are we leaving this guy wide open from the three-point line where he can obviously fill it up? He was 3 of 5 from the three-point line and hit 7 of his 12 shots. And, yeah, I don't know. There was kind of a lot to unpack in this game, but at the same time, we just don't know what to expect in game 2, right? We've seen. I feel like game 2 is going to be so telling about this series and with the direction that it goes. If the Nuggets bounce back and win the game, then we got a series on our hands. I think we kind of witnessed it with the Lakers in the last 2 series where it's like, all right, they lose game 1. Some people hit the panic button a little bit. It's like, oh, crap, if we lose game 2, we're in deep trouble. I kind of feel that way for the Nuggets, so I think that we're going to see a much better effort on both ends of the floor from them in game 2, and the Lakers have got to be ready to go because I think if they can go up 2-0 on the Nuggets and make it so that the Nuggets have to beat them 4 times out of 5 to advance, I just have a hard time seeing that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that we should point out, as much as we talked about the Lakers not really playing at their peak, I also do think that a lot of things went really, really poorly for the Nuggets in this game that I don't really expect to continue happening, in terms of the foul trouble for their 2 stars. The Lakers hit 11 of their 26 three-pointers, 42%. That's incredible for the Lakers. They're not a great three-point shooting team. They got to the line a whole lot, and they got into the paint a whole lot. So I think the Nuggets will clean up a lot of those mistakes. we obviously talked about how this is a great matchup for the Lakers regardless, but I also don't really expect it to be as easy as it sort of seemed throughout parts of this game. Um, the fatigue factor will play a part, but I also do think that those guys are going to be a lot more prepared heading into game two. I think Mike Malone is way too good of a coach not to really make any sort of adjustments to deal with the Lakers' size and athleticism that really seemed to affect the Nuggets throughout this whole game.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. The game two is going to be a totally different game, I think, and I'm really interested to see how the Lakers come out and how they adjust and how they counter to some things that Denver did today and how Denver counters to what the Lakers were doing today. So it'll be fun to watch. It's very interesting, and I think game two is a crucial game. Now it's obviously not like a must win for the Lakers or anything. I think it's borderline must win for the Nuggets. Not saying that a team can't come down from 2-0. I just think it would be very difficult for them to beat the Lakers 4 times out of 5. So if the Lakers can come out and take care of business, I mean, so far they're undefeated in the Black Mamba jerseys. So hopefully they come out and play like they always seem to do in those jerseys and go up 2-0 and really take control of this series and maybe start to. That's the kind of the thing when you're playing against a team that has come back from a 3-1 deficit twice in the same playoff run. I don't know if you're ever going to put doubt in their minds. You just got to kind of knock them out. So obviously, Lakers still need 3 more wins to do that. So there's still a lot of work left to be done. So you just got to focus on the next game in front of them. But I thought there was a lot of good things to take away from this game if you're the Lakers. But I also think there's a lot of things that they could clean up, especially defensively. And I think there's just some adjustments that can be made, and I think we'll see a better scoring performance from LeBron. Not that he was inefficient or anything. I mean, he only took 11 shots, but I would expect LeBron to score more than 15 points. And I want to say I'm expecting AD to continue to go off, but I wouldn't be surprised at all to see the Nuggets start to really trap and double team him pretty hard in game two.
Yeah, they didn't really do a whole lot of that, at least compared to what we saw in the first 2 series the Lakers played, where the Blazers and the Rockets seemingly trapped them every single time. Although AD definitely has gotten a whole lot better at playing in those situations as well. He goes a lot quicker, doesn't really let those double teams get to him. But I agree with you that I think the Nuggets will try to trap him and kind of force him to make those mistakes and try to win the turnover battle, because I think that was – the turnover margins were pretty close at the end of the game, but at least in terms of sort of the flow of the game, it really seemed like that was affecting the Nuggets a whole lot more than it was affecting the Lakers.
Yeah, if the Lakers turn the ball over only 11 times, I think they'll probably be okay. I mean, obviously you don't want to turn the ball over at all, but if this team avoids high turnover games and they just hit open shots, man, like that's – The 2 main things with this team is they're going to get a ton of open looks because they have Anthony Davis and LeBron commanding so much attention. And LeBron, one of the best passers in NBA history. And so if guys can just hit open shots, and today KCP hit open shots, Markieff Morris hit open shots, Kuzma hit open shots. If those guys can hit open shots and if this team just locks in defensively, I just can't see them losing this series. But long way to go. So we'll just kind of go on to game 2, which will be on Sunday, and we'll be looking forward to that. But I don't have anything else really to add from this game. I mean, it was just kind of a weird feel to it from the start. It just seemed like, I was encouraged that the Lakers were only down 2, considering I felt like they played no defense at all in the first quarter. And then when they started playing defense, they took control of the game in a big way. So I don't really have anything else to add to this game. Do you got anything you want to add before we dive into some viewer questions?
I'll give just one shout out to Kyle Kuzma's off-ball movement, because it makes me so happy every time. He had some beautiful cuts. And really, I think one thing we should really keep an eye on, the Lakers have not really done this a whole lot, I don't think, this season, but they really went to it a lot, where they had the guy setting screens slip a whole lot more because of the Nuggets soft hedging that they like to do. And it was leading to some like wide open layups. There was the KCP one where he screened for Rondo in the first quarter. And then there was one LeBron had, I think, like immediately after he seemingly hurt his ankle, apparently. And then he went down the lane and just dunked it all over whoever it was. But I think that's kind of an interesting little wrinkle that they seem to have added to their offense.
Yeah. Another thing with Kuzma too is the Lakers are so good at even on a made basket of getting out in transition and hitting a defense before it gets set. I think he had another two layups today, maybe it was two or three, but where the ball's going through the net, the Lakers are taking it out of bounds, but Kuzma's leaking out and getting ahead and behind the defense and getting basically the 2 points they gave up, just getting it right back in a matter of like 3 seconds. So
Yeah.
shout out to Kyle Kuzma for running the floor, cutting without the basketball. He's just played very good basketball. Even though he was -9 in this game, I still thought he was pretty good in this game. He's just been rock solid really throughout this whole bubble run and especially in the playoffs. So really good to see and a really good development for the Lakers moving forward. So all right, let's dive into these fan questions. We got I feel like a handful from Jacob Rude. Jacob, first of all, I just want to say congratulations on Hani winning you some money. And first question, is playoff Rondo the greatest point guard in Lakers history or NBA history?
Isn't that the same thing?
I
I think that's the same thing.
was just going to say yes.
I like that answer. I'll second my colleague over here.
Nice. That doesn't happen very often. Jacob also asked, congrats to both of you, or not asked, but comment. Congrats to both of you on matching the point total for Kawhi and PG in the fourth quarter of Game 7. I want to say thank you, but I almost feel like that's like a super backhanded compliment.
Both teams played hard. Both teams play hard, my man.
I was like when I said, out of respect to the Nuggets, I have the Lakers winning in 5. So, all right, diving into some more of these comments. Hi, Bevers. Thank you for following along. Appreciate you following us and contributing in the chat. We always love everybody jumping in the chat. Thoughts on having JaVale's minutes mirror Plumlee's and have Dwight or AD mirror Jokic's minutes?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of what we alluded to earlier, that I think Dwight should, at least I would say 100% of Dwight's minutes, basically, I expect to be when Jokic is playing. And I do like the matchup of JaVale against Plumlee a whole lot more because Plumlee's not really a post-up big, and I think he can match his athleticism a lot better than Dwight can. So that seems to be a little bit of a better matchup for both guys.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I just wanted to hear you talk about it again.
I mean, I know I have a great voice, but
all right. Another question doesn't have anything to do with the game, but we were all kind of thinking it earlier today. Do you see OG Anunoby signing with the Lakers since he's a Clutch client now? I'll go ahead and answer this for Jacob Rude. Jacob already put it in the Twitch chat, but yes, future Laker. # future Laker.
I'll use OG's own words to say that if your OG signs with our player agent representative, that's our OG now.
Anyways,
and I'll also say that we don't shoot to miss.
That's true. I mean, we how many Clutch clients do the Lakers not have at this point? Because I feel like there's less that they don't have than they do have.
That's a good point. I kind of want to look that up.
Draymond, I think, is one.
Draymond, Eric Bledsoe, Nerlens Noel. We've talked about Nerlens Noel joining the Lakers for seemingly 16 years.
These are all # future Lakers. All of them.
Every single one.
So, yeah. All right, last call for questions. If you have questions, be sure to drop them in. Lonzo Ball, yeah, another one. Former Laker, future Laker. Both the former and future Laker. So, yeah, no, it'll be interesting to watch moving forward. Lakers obviously have strong ties with Clutch, but hey, we're 7 wins away. 7 wins away from capturing championship number 17. And just 3 wins away from punching our ticket to the NBA Finals. It's pretty crazy to think about, considering just all the ups and downs of this year and just this playoff run where our underdog Lakers have defeated 2 Goliaths and they're off to a good start on number 3.
Look, I mean, we can't speak enough to the resilience of this Lakers team being able to continuously punch up against these juggernaut opponents. Despite all that has been said about them, that nobody believed in us. All the experts thought that the Blazers would beat us. ESPN BPI didn't think we were in like the top 5 title contenders before the season. But man, it's hard not to hashtag we believe in this team right now.
Streetlights over spotlights. That's right, Bevers. plucky underdogs. That's right. It's been quite a run so far, and hopefully it ends with seven more wins. But we've got the Celtics coming up tomorrow, possibly dropping down 3-0. I mean, it sounds like, I don't want to say that they're imploding, but there's definitely some drama going on in their locker room, which I guess is normal for a team that when you're down 2-0. I mean, if I'd almost be a little alarmed if guys were not pissed off that they're down 2-0. But It'll be really curious. I'll be really curious to see how they handle that game 3 tomorrow. We might. We've talked about this. I'm curious. Let us know in the comments on YouTube or on Twitch, Facebook, wherever. What your guys' thoughts would be. We've thought about doing like some live watch parties. I don't know if we'll do them for a Laker playoff game because there's probably going to be some foul language flying around, and I don't know how that's going to fly with Twitch and YouTube and all those sites. But I think we're thinking about watching, basically doing one of these during a Celtics Heat game in one of their during this series, maybe tomorrow. So if you guys would be interested in something like that, let us know in the comments. If you think it's a terrible idea, also let us know in the comments. If you want to just comment on Honey's Popeye's chicken sandwich dinner choice, you can always do that too, but it better be something positive.
If you think it's a terrible idea, yes, let us know, but be gentle. We have feelings.
That's true. Don't hurt Honey's feelings, or then I have to come for you. Just like I'm coming for Nikola Jokic for trying to hurt Alex Caruso today. As you can see by my shirt, don't mess with the Caruso. Ever.
If you hurt my feelings, you owe me a Popeye's chicken sandwich.
Yeah, me too. All right. No more questions. We're rolling in. So pretty light day for questions, which, hey, I mean, when the Lakers just come out and just dominate really from the second quarter on. I didn't want to say from the tip because it obviously wasn't, but hey, I'll take a nice 3-quarter domination and a nice easy win. And finally a game 1 win. Finally, it's going to be so nice going into game 2 almost a little relaxed a little bit. I'll be excited and nervous, but a little more relaxed where it's not like, okay, they got to win this game. It's more of like a luxury game at that point where, if the Lakers just go out and they win that game, then it's like, all right, now we're sitting pretty. But that Rockets game, too, was brutal. In that third quarter when the Rockets went nuts from 3, I was starting to sweat a little bit. I'm glad I don't have to worry about that in this game, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be watching that game with my feet kicked up, maybe wearing sandals just in homage of Nikola Jokic, who looks like he's playing in sandals at all times.
I have been told... Yes, that I look like Carson Wentz. I have heard that several times. So
usually from me.
Yes, I've heard that from at least like 6 or 7 different people. My body is probably, as crazy as to say, because Carson Wentz gets hurt all the time. My body, it probably gets hurt more than Carson Wentz. So shout out to Carson Wentz. Stop getting hurt. You got to represent since you're my doppelganger. So. All right, we're going to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for contributing in the chat. Hani, thanks for joining me. I know it's been kind of a long day. I know both of us are probably ready for bed at this point, but we'll be back on Sunday. It's a little earlier tip time, which will be kind of nice. I mean, not that these games are late, but we'll be here after game 2. Like I said, let us know in the comments if you would be interested in us doing a watch party for one of the Celtics and Heat games or multiple Celtics and Heat games. I mean, hell, there might only be 2 left. That would be just such a shame. But yeah, as always, guys, we're going to be doing these live after games, and hopefully we're going to be doing a preview pod for the NBA Finals. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But after games, you can find us on twitch.tv/LakersOutsiders. You can subscribe to us on YouTube And be sure, if you subscribe to us on YouTube, to be sure to like the videos as well. That really helps us out a lot. And you can like us on Facebook. We'll be streaming on all 3 of those platforms live, which you can pop in, drop questions, comments, whatever you want. Just like Hani said, just be gentle, okay? We have feelings. These will also go up as podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. They'll be up there. So you got plenty of avenues to listen to this podcast if you enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, we appreciate your support. We really, really do. So I really can't say that enough. So, all right, we're getting out of here. Follow Hani on Twitter at HONIAHM. Me at Gary Kester. I got to put one of these times, I'm going to put it on the stream so that I don't have to keep saying it. And of course, follow Lakers Outsiders on Twitter and Instagram, and like us on Facebook. So thank you guys so much for listening. But until next time, after game 2 on Sunday, this is Gary Kester with Hani Amadian and the Lakers Outsiders signing off.
Shout out to Troy Daniels and his beautiful, beautiful smile.
Oh, God.